Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the live pre-match show where I am joined by Callum Davis. Warm welcome to the show, Callum. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, not too bad. Looking forward to tonight's game. I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, it's a very important game indeed. Obviously, we're coming to you guys just minutes after the team news has been released, and there's plenty of reactions already in the live chat, namely the name Doucouré keeps popping up. And that's because Abdoulaye Doucouré is back in the starting 11 for Everton today. We'll just relay that team news to you if you haven't seen it. Yes, it's a pretty strong lineup, to be fair. It's a kind of lineup we've been waiting to see for, say for maybe James Rodriguez. It's a strong team. It's Jordan Pickford, Seamus Coleman, Luca Dean, Mason Holgate, Michael Keane, Ben Godfrey, Doucouré returning, of course, Alan, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Richarlison, and Calvert-Lewin up top. So yeah, it's a really strong team. What's your take on that one, Callum?
You can't really complain with it, can you? It's probably the strongest side that we've been able to put out, like you said, in a long time, except for obviously James. And I think Sigurdsson's done really well in recent weeks, to be fair to him, after he's obviously had his critics, hasn't he? I think Mina probably would be starting instead of Holgate if he hadn't got injured the other week. So other than that, I can't really fault the team there. I think that is what I would have picked if with what was available. So I think that should be enough to do the job, you'd imagine.
I think Tom Davies is unlucky to miss out.
Well, I did think that. I said before the game that like it will either be Doucouré or Davis in that other central midfield spot because Alan's pretty much undroppable at the moment. And yeah, I suppose so. But in the last Villa game, we got so overrun in midfield, and you'll probably have seen the clips, won't you, of Barkley finding so many little spaces, and when he hit the post, there was just a huge black hole in our midfield. So I think Doucouré being there should hopefully make that not a thing anymore.
I hope so, because we really got exposed in that respect.
Mm-hmm. That's just the game, that the midfield. So I hope it won't happen in this game with them two back for the first time in too long.
Yeah, definitely too long. Ashley Glass in the chat says, must-win game today, guys. It's the game in hand. I mean, we've banging on about this for months and months. I mean, the game in hand. We've still got the game in hand, but tonight is the game in hand. And if we mess this up, then you can all stop banging on about that. So we need to get the win today. Please God, just win this game.
It's been so annoying that hanging over us for like months and months now. It's been like one big hypothetical if this happens, but it's Everton, so you can never plan on us doing something.
You really cannot. Ashley Glass says Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin need to get their act together. Last game they had a chance to pass to each other and they didn't. They were greedy.
Yeah,
I think
a few times that I did notice that and think they probably should have played each other. But a couple times, Calvert-Lewin had one opportunity where he probably should have played with Richarlison, but then he ended up threading that ball through to Coleman. So if they're finding better options, I don't mind it. But I do definitely agree with that. It did seem like a little bit dodgy, the way they were missing each other out.
I mean, personally, I think it's primarily Richarlison who's instigating that, and I think that's because of his lack of goals lately. I think he's being too selfish. He's trying too hard to get himself a goal, and it's coming at the expense of the team. It's sort of been an opportunity he had to play in Sigurdsson in the game against West Ham and the game against Villa. There was two occasions, and one in each of those games, where Sigurdsson had made a run through the middle. He could have threaded him in, and instead held onto the ball, and it took the momentum out of the attack. And
he strikes me as that kind of person as well who would get it in his mind, I'm going to score now, so I'm not going to pass to anyone else, because he does sulk a little bit and stuff like that. And when he was brought off, he was sulking, which I don't mind to see it because it shows that he wants to be on the pitch. But obviously when it comes at the negative of the team, then it needs to be sorted out. And I'm sure Carlo will have done.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's definitely something, because if those two work well together, then we've always got a chance in any game.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, Wormy Spoons has come up. Are we all ready for the crap show? I hope not, but you never can tell, can you? I mean, it's the second game in a row now without Andre Gomez in the team, which is always a little bit of a boost in terms of giving us a bit more dynamism in the team.
Yeah, I
But
think
you never know what kind of players are going to, like, what kind of performances players are going to churn out. We've been so inconsistent this season. It's let us down this season. Aaron Koeman says Richie hasn't had his best season, but still 12 goals, which isn't bad. Yeah, it's a good. I think it's because he has these spurts of bad form, and he's desperate. He's always very desperate to play himself back into form. I think sometimes he can take that a bit too far.
I think he's been our main man as well a lot of other seasons, whereas Calvert-Lewin's kind of taken that this season, hasn't he? And hence he's got all the majority of the goals. I'd like to see them shared out though. I'd like to see them both up there in the goal scoring charts.
Yeah, I mean, they're both done relatively well, as Aaron Koeman just popped up in the chat there and said he's got both strikers have been chipping in with the goals. For me, the real problem is the players behind them are contributing enough. I think.
Oh yeah, none of the midfielders ever really grab a goal, do they?
There's only really Sigurdsson who's got goals. Obviously, James as well, but he's not here tonight. There's only really Sigurdsson out of the midfielders who's capable of scoring a goal. I always would like to call it. He's had the odd couple even there. Alan's not scored for us yet. Davis hasn't scored this season.
No.
Andre Gomez doesn't do anything. You know, the defenders, you get the odd goal from set piece, but that's about it.
Yeah, you know, to push on to the next level, you do need the midfield to start contributing. Like all the sides in the top four, they all have goal-scoring midfielders, and we just seem that's just where we always have been lacking, other than Sigurdsson, of course. But again, a bit of an inconsistent one, isn't it?
Definitely, Wormy Spoons is definitely not feeling too optimistic about this evening. Our style of play won't change now till new signings. We'll defend and crab about, hoping to scrape a goal. I mean, that's been the order of the day since about a third of the way through the season, I think. And at times it has got us the results. At times it's made us look an absolute laughing stock. So you just got to hope it's the former rather than the latter, I think, this season. But I do agree. I'd like to see some more dynamic players coming in next season and maybe make us a bit more able to mix it up. You know, I have nothing against defensive football, and I think it delivers results at times. But you've got to be able to attack as well. And there's times I think we're lacking in those areas.
Yeah, just as long as it does deliver the results, because obviously sometimes, as you said, it's made us look like an embarrassment with the way that we play, and then we don't even get the result. Like at Goodison,
like the Villa game, the previous game.
Yeah, exactly like that. So I do think that like next season he'll get more of his own players in, because it's still relatively not his squad, and there's a lot of the players that he brought in as well got injured, so he's not been too lucky this season really with the injuries, because they've come in the most important positions and the most important players. So hopefully next season when he gets more in, he can play to a more attractive style of football, which everyone just wants to see, don't they?
Yeah, even, you know, just as long as the football is functional and we get the results. I think Aaron Koeman put there, as long as we win, that's all that matters. And that is it. I mean, it's not, I don't mind us winning ugly. I just like to see us be able to do more going forwards.
We really blew a side away, which is nice.
We haven't done it since the opening month of the season.
Yeah, it's nice to see every now and then, but I would take 1-0s to top four, but it's like to see us win a 4-3-0 convincing one where I don't have to worry for the last 10 minutes of the game that we're going to throw it away.
It's a tough one. I think people are making good points here about like Iwobi and Tosin and players like that. Who's really going to want to buy them off us?
They are dead weight.
The thing is, in terms of the FFPs being relaxed this summer, and also we're getting some of these off the wage bill anyway, a lot of big contracts are up this summer, so there is going to be a bit more leeway in terms of what we can spend. I'd like to see us make sure we do that wisely. We'll definitely get some improvements in, but I'd definitely still be trying to like get rid of these players. I don't really like having these kinds of players with this mediocre mentality lying around the club.
It's making up for years and years of just mismanagement and
evolve, basically.
Yeah, basically. So I feel like as time goes along, we're going to slowly ship those kind of players off, and then if Ancelotti's bringing in the likes of James and players of that stature, then the only way has to be up. You'd hope.
Yeah, I think we need it's the midfield's definitely what needs strengthening. I'd like to see a few more wide players come in. I don't think we've got enough width in this team. I mean,
not enough
I know it's
pace.
not no pace. I think we need fast, strong, dynamic wingers.
Mm-hmm.
Really give us that extra dimension. We seem very one-dimensional at times. I mean, I know narrow formations have always seemed to have been Ancelotti's preference at times in his career. In a way, AC Milan and the likes of those teams, he did sort of play the narrow, like Christmas tree formations. But in the Premier League, you've got to be capable of mixing it up. I think there's too many sides who sometimes can be too attacking and chip goals. We're not one of those, but we're not attacking enough. I think we need to have both sides to the game. I think the teams who have that are the teams best equipped to be successful.
I think as well that narrow formation that Ancelotti likes to play, it does rely on having a lot of technically really good footballers, like the Milan side that he had, where he changed that formation. He had the likes of Pirlo, Seedorf, and all them, Kaká, all the greats, and now he's trying to shoehorn Sigurdsson into a midfield with all our Everton players who are good, but they're not AC
good
Milan.
Enough. They're not good enough. They're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not like Ambrosinis and Gattusos or.
Exactly, yeah. So I think in the Premier League especially as well, you do have to adapt, like you said, and you can't just really stick to one formation the whole time unless you are one of the best sides in the league.
Yeah, well, I watched the Chelsea game last night, and Chelsea had been doing brilliantly, but they looked terrible yesterday, and that's just because it was this whole trying to be too technical, trying to walk it in type game. I don't like that at all. Unless you're Man City, I don't think you can do that.
No, Arsenal suffered from that under Wenger, trying to do that too often, and eventually that ended up with him getting sacked. So there's a limit with that kind of football, isn't there? There's only so far it can take you before someone else can do it better than you can.
I think the Premier for to compete in the Premier League, you've got to have different strings to your bow, and I think we're getting there. I think we've definitely shored things up defensively. We're good at the defensive side of the game, I think, but we need to make sure we have more options in attack, and we've got to be able to be adaptable and mix things up when we need to. And we're still lacking in attack, I think.
Yeah, I always think that when, we said the dynamic, pacey wingers, we never have that option off the bench. Our wingers to bring on are always either Iwobi or Bernard.
Yeah.
And neither of them are real speedsters.
So and they're not game changers either. They're not going to put a cross on a sixpence for someone.
No,
Bernard's never provided adequate service from the flanks, even when he's been on.
Yeah.
How many assists does he get? Iwobi doesn't really get many assists,
No.
Neither of them score goals. Like, Iwobi's got one. Bernard has only got one in the cup. The numbers the output in terms of goals and assists are wretched from both of those players.
I think just whether you don't even have to be the most technically brilliant player in the world. If you have a lot of speed, you'll cause an issue coming off the bench late on against tired legs. Even someone like Dan James, who isn't the greatest footballer in the world.
I'll be honest, I don't really rate him.
But he'll cause issues just because he's a pain to have to mark for a fullback who's tired and just thinks, God, I've got to run after him now. So if they're not the best players in the world, the worst thing they'll do is create space with their speed. And to track Iwobi or to track Bernard, it doesn't take much. You don't have to move very far. But with someone, even with just speed, it just gives them a different thought in their head, which, like we said, we don't have.
Yeah, I think that's always what I've worried about, is us not giving the opposition enough to think about. Is the best way of putting it. It's like, when times when we have played defensively, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with playing a defensive setup. But when you get the ball, you've got to turn the defenders. You've got to give them something to think about. I mean, Villa won the game against us at Goodison because of that. We were generally getting forward, but they were turning our defenders with Ollie Watkins all the time. And I know he's not playing tonight, but that is what they'll try and do. And I think most teams are a lot more effective at it than we are in terms of
their wingers are basically especially that Traore, the kind of player that we need, not him specifically, but just someone who's big, fast, and can turn and run at a player, and it just causes issues. When someone's running at you, you think, "Oh God, like what? I've got to deal with this now." But and Iwobi's running at you, you think, "Oh, just take the ball and move on."
You think Iwobi would turn into one of the? I always thought Iwobi might have a chance of being that kind of player, but
Yeah,
just
same.
hasn't got it.
No, there's been flashes this season. Like I remember he played wing back, didn't he, against Fulham when we beat them at their place earlier in the season. And I thought that would be it then. That would be like the catalyst, and he'd push on and he'd find his position and become a really useful member of the team. But other than the Wolves game where he scored early on, I can't think of another performance really where
And
he's
he's all
made.
right in that December period. I think, and it was around that time I was trying to convince myself that he had a purpose here. But since like the last 2 months or so, he's really sort of shown himself up to be a bit of a fraud, to be honest.
A panic buy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disaster, really, and it's one of the few blots on Brands' copybook, really, but he just seems to have learned his lesson in that respect, I'd like to think. But he's, Iwobi's definitely not what we need. We need Bernard. We need proper wingers. Even if we're not going to always play a wide formation, you need that option to change things up if it isn't working. That's the best teams. You've got to have your plans B and C. I think Carlo's a very adaptable manager. I'd like to think that he has those ideas in his mind moving forward, that he will have alternative options on the benches to be able to call upon. But he was definitely not got it now, and it's annoying because like as soon as we go behind, we're going to struggle to get back on level terms.
He's shown a lot of times
there's no game changes,
hasn't he? Like you said, like with the different formations that he's tried. So I think he obviously like wants us to play different kinds of formations, but with the players that we have, it limits the way that you can change your system up because they're all pretty similar. Like Bernard and Iwobi, pretty similar wingers. We don't have any speed, so that's probably the reason for why we have no people who come off the bench and score. Because while they may come on, they'll just do the same thing that the person before them was doing, which was obviously not working.
Yeah, but that's it. We need the players who come off the bench to be game changers. I had more hopes for Josh King, but that hasn't worked out either.
No. He was unlucky against West Ham, wasn't he, to not score?
Yeah. Was that on ball on the line? We never even discussed that in our post-match last time. But
well, I didn't even notice it in the game. I just carried on as if nothing had happened.
I was screaming on ball, and then I saw the replay, and then I thought maybe not.
There's one replay, isn't there, which looks like it goes bang on the post, and then there's another one which looks like he might as well have caught it. So I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Erwin Koeman's just popped up. Can you name the full Villa team? The Villa team, I had it up a moment ago. I'll just get it up for you, Erwin. Here we are. It's a very strong team, to be fair. Grealish aside, I think it's their best 11. It's Martinez in goal, Cash, Conser, Mings, Target, Douglas, Luiz and McGinn in the middle, Barkley, obviously, El Garci, Davis and Traore. So I think...
We started Davis?
Yeah, well, Watkins is suspended and Grealish is on the bench.
I thought he might have started that Wesley because he'd come back from injury and played a few sub-appearances in the last 2 games. He scored against us last year, didn't he, at Villa Park?
Keenan Davis?
No, Wesley.
Oh, Wesley, yeah, he's on the bench. Now, there are some very good players in their team. There's many a player that I would have off this team.
No,
I said this before and after we lost that other game. John McGinn, players like that, I'd have in a heartbeat in this team, an absolute grafter. Just need players like that.
I know.
Traore, you mentioned before, I'd have him. Matty Cash, I'd have him.
He'd be brilliant.
Grealish, obviously, without a doubt. Not fit to start today, but he's on the bench. I'd definitely have him, obviously. There's so many players.
Watkins,
so many players there.
Calvert-Lewin. I think Watkins is a good striker.
Yeah, I think Watkins would definitely be the type of alternative I'd like to see. Like, this is what I'm saying. If we have if Calvert-Lewin isn't working or Richarlison isn't working, you want a player of that caliber to get off the bench. And I mean, it's difficult because players aren't going to want to come here and be third striker, but you've got to be clever with the decisions you make and the strikers you bring in, and try and make a shrewd move so we can have a decent substitute striker. Because, Tosin isn't cutting the mustard. Josh King clearly hasn't done enough, or hasn't been given the chance to do enough. We don't know. But, over the years, it's been Cenk Tosin, Moise Keane. He never did enough. We need to be able to call upon a striker who can get off the bench if we need to change things up and make a difference. Because I can't remember the last time we really had that.
I really did think Josh King would do it for us, to be honest. Because, I'd seen him for Bournemouth and I thought he was just a handy little player, caused some problems. And whether he's been given a fair run is another thing, but he hasn't really looked up to it on the few occasions that I've seen him. West Ham was probably the best I'd seen of him, where he got himself about, almost scored. But other than that, I've been disappointed with him because I did think he'd be the one for us to be that backup striker.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit disappointing, really, that I don't think we've ever, certainly as long as, certainly probably since David Moyes is here anyway, I can't recall us having a team where we had a substitute striker who could do the job. Under Moyes, I think he had, Victor Anachibi wasn't a massive game changer, but he was probably a better sub than any strikers we've had since.
Yeah.
Duncan Ferguson was used as a sub effectively by Moyes as well. We did always have a decent backup. And Moyes wasn't notorious for doing a good job with the strikers. I think he ruined a few strikers, but he always seemed to have another option if one wasn't working.
Yeah, I feel like you don't even need the greatest players in the world, just as long as it's a different dynamic, like we've said.
I think an Anachibi type player, a big monster who can come on and bully defenders up a little bit, and we had a bit of speed there as well. Just give them something else to think about. I mean, that I was saying this before, when things aren't working, we don't give enough. We don't ask enough questions of the opposition. I think we need to bring more players on and who can do something different. Yeah,
definitely. It's just blunt, predictable Everton on this season, really, and if we're not,
it has been ever since the Moyes era. I think certainly Martinez onwards, it's always been predictable. Since Moyes, I can't recall us turning deficits around that regularly. This season maybe we've come from behind a few times, but
no, it's been a problem, hasn't it? For a while, I remember seeing stats in previous seasons saying that whenever we go behind, we very rarely ever recover points.
Yeah, well, I certainly think Ancelotti's helped a little bit with that, but even then, we've still got a way to go. But certainly from Moyes onward, from Martinez and the managers since then, I think turning around deficits when we go behind has been a major problem. And I think that is very much down to what we always talk about, mentality and stuff. And I think that is an element, but I think it's also not having these different dimensions to sort of make defenders of the opposition team second guess themselves. We don't have the game changers to come off the bench, and I think that's definitely something to address. I mean, there's flaws in the first team that needs addressing. Midfield in particular, I think needs to be addressed. But I'd definitely like to see a few players we can use as super subs almost. I mean, that's definitely the term. We're missing a super sub.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the mentality thing that you said was really bang on the nose as well. Yeah, it seems to have made a little shift this season, and you can see by the reason that we've won games at top 6 sides: Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal. Arsenal top 6 side, but
I think
that's a movement, isn't it? In a way,
definitely. I think there has been improvement in the mentality side of the game since Carlo took over, and you'd expect that coming from a very good manager like he is, and he's done a really good job in that respect. But it's only so far you can go with a limited squad, and I think he needs to be backed, and he needs to strengthen the squad. I would say get super subs in. I think you've seen this season that I think our starting 11 is pretty decent when fully fit. I think what happens when, for starters, what happens when those players get injured, but also when first 11 isn't quite working and we need a game changer. We haven't got the subs to call upon. The backup players aren't adequate. I think we need to get game changers in this summer to be able to turn things around when it's not going as well. You can call mentality as much as you want, and I think there is an element of that, and I think Carlo is improving that. But there's also the quality side of things. You need to have quality to come off the bench. You can make a difference and add an extra dimension to your game if something else isn't working.
No, I completely agree, and it's really tough with buying those sub players because it's very easy to get stuck with the kind of dead weight that we've been stuck with for years, isn't it? Because the risks, people who are going to sit on the bench, whether they're going to do the job or not.
The risk of signing these type of players as backup, there's players who are coming in with the mentality of a backup who is happy to just sit on the bench and, come on, not do that well and get sitting on the bench the next week anyway.
Yeah, there's nothing for them to aim towards. So it is a difficult blend between getting someone who's hungry, but not that they want to use a stepping stone or something along those lines.
I definitely think, as far as we're concerned, to really push on, we need to sign players as starters. And even if that means pushing out of the team, even if that means taking players out of the team now who are good enough and reducing them to substitute roles, if they're as good as they like to think they are, they should have the mentality to try and fight their way back in. Even if it's a James or, I think there are some players who are, I think Tom Davies is an example of a decent player to have as a sub. Even Sigurdsson maybe, because there is things that they are capable of. But I don't want to be relying on those kind of players as starters. Those players should be looking to fight their way into the team. And even your Jameses or your Richarlisons, if they have to be reduced to substitutes, we want to have that kind of competition for places in the team, because only that can really kick us on.
Yeah, it's like if Manchester City go out and say they want a backup option for their team, then they will get a backup option, but someone who's probably one of the best in the world in their position. But if Everton say they want to go and get a backup option, the level in quality is such a drop off, like from backup options from the top team to us who want to get to that level.
Yeah, that's the major difference, is that like Man City have signed like that Ferran Torres, he's a backup they've signed, but he'd get in our team any day.
Yeah, you are right with the way that you've just got to build on the team that you've already got, and then the players that have been in the first team, you'd like to think would be hungry to get back in if they were replaced, and the players that have just come with the intention of being in the first team, then they have to fight for their spot, and everyone would benefit from that.
Yeah, and you benefit from the competition. You can't be signed. I don't think we're in a position, if we want to move forwards, to be signing players with the sole purpose of considering them a substitute.
That's what King was, and that's not worked out.
It hasn't worked out, but I mean, that's a short-term fix. I don't mind that in that respect. It's when we sign players like Delph, for instance. Delph's a good example of this. A player who I thought when we signed him, signed as the plan was for him to be a substitute, generally. And he's coming with that mentality of sit on the bench, play about 20 minutes a game if he's fit, for starters, but just come in and just do that. I think you can't have players with a substitute mentality. Every player should be wanting to play, wanting to be on the team sheet.
I remember when we signed Delph, I did think that would be a really good sign, and I spoke
to
people, and they were like, 8 mil, brilliant business. And
But I think now in hindsight, you look at the sides that have progressed. Dare I say it, the neighbours under Klopp. You've got other teams like Leicester, for instance. Maybe I feel like every signing they make is signed with the intention of them being a starter, or if they're not completely ready for that, they're young and they can be turned into starters in the future. I don't see any of these backup type players coming in, or if it is, it's very rare.
Yeah, the best model is Leicester. That's what every team like Everton, West Ham should look to build upon, because they've done it perfectly, and they've just built upon what was already a decent span of a squad and just made it better season after season. And now you'd class them as top 4 challengers every season. Now, past 2, this season before, they should have got Champions League last season. They look like they're going to get it, or might just fall short this season. So they're thereabouts every season now, and that's exactly what we should look to follow. That they've done perfectly.
You've got to be able to compete, but I think what Leicester have done is, I mean, they've sold some key players as well, like Maguire and that, but they've always seemed to, every signing they've brought in, I think of, we might improve their starting 11 straight away. There's none of these players you're thinking, they're signing him to sit on the bench. Like, I thought that with Delph, I thought that with Iwobi.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that with a few of the players we've signed in the past. Prior to that, we did it quite a lot. I thought there's too many players who will be content with just being a substitute here. And I don't want that. I want every player to come in with a hunger to play. And if they don't play, you go away and they work hard to try and play the next week.
Yeah, you just have to build upon your squad with hungry players, like you mentioned. That's the only way to move forward without spending like the ridiculous money that City have to get where they got. But why don't we this summer? No relaxed FFP.
Yeah, I think the FFP situation is looking a lot better for us this summer, as it will have been for a long time. Certainly pre-Mashiri, like when Mashiri first came in, we had a bit of spending power. But I think that's 2017 summer really decimated us. And also, like, that's held us back ever since.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the 2017 summer gets written off the balance sheets this summer, which takes the shackles off a bit. Yeah. In general, I think across the board, FFP is getting relaxed, which helps. And also a lot of the big money contracts that some wasters are sitting on are actually going to run out. So Walcott's going to go. We've sold a few of them as well. Balassi, Tosun, we might manage to get rid of him. Or we've got one season left, he might pay him off. There's a lot of the big money contracts that have shackled us for the last few years are either ending or a year away from ending come this summer.
I think that summer has just loomed over the club ever since. Well, at the time, I was buzzing thinking that all these players are going to come in and it'd all click. And it's turned into like a nightmare, really, with the players that we've been stuck with. So maybe that has affected, well, it will have done affected the thinking of the club, because they won't have wanted to go out and make another mass mistake like they did with the money that they wasted on a lot of those players.
Yeah, and they've got to be careful this summer. We're in a better position than we have been in a while, no matter how well or badly this season finishes. We are in a better position than we have been for a couple of years, both financially and as in terms of the sort of performance on the pitch. It's going to be a better season. The best season we'll have had points-wise since Koeman's first, regardless of what happens. So we are starting to move in the right direction, even if it's going to take a bit of time. But we've got to spend the money more wisely now. We've got it to spend again.
Yeah, and if there's anyone I'd want to give the money to, it's Ancelotti.
Yeah, but I trust Ancelotti far more than I trust Ronald Koeman or Marco Silva, put it that way.
Yeah, well, that doesn't really say a great deal, does it?
No, I mean, I'm confident that Ancelotti will use his brain. You don't get where you do with him for nothing. And he's done well so far. Like I say, the 4 signings he brought in, regardless of some of them have got poor injury records, which I'm not best pleased with, but all 4 of them have improved the squad. And that's what I was saying before. Every player we bring in needs to be an improvement to the squad. Even Godfrey, who came in maybe as a youngster, has come in and done well and been a revelation this season. The 3 were brought in as immediate improvements and did exactly that. His track record so far has been very good.
Yeah. Do you mean James?
Yeah, James, Alan, Decore.
Well, yeah, I think a few of them have been unlucky as well with the injuries. The Decore fractured foot one, it's kind of a freak injury. You can't really account for something like that. And we knew what we were getting with James. I think is it like 24 games he's played, or it might be when the end of the season comes around. We can't really have expected much else from a player like that. And I'd take that every season if he performs to the best of his ability, because we can't expect much else. We knew what we were getting.
Well, he's a very good player, and regardless of even if he only plays a couple of games, as long as he makes the contributions we can expect from him, that's fine. But like I'm saying, I think I'd like to start looking at bringing in more players who could, even as good as James is, potentially put him out the team.
Yeah. Well, as he grows older, because he was about 28, 29, wasn't he?
Yeah, he'll be 30 towards the end of this year, I think.
Yeah, well, he will slowly start to, you'd imagine, although he doesn't really rely on pace that much, but if you can get players around him who could even just learn a tiny thing from him, then I feel like what he's given us on the pitch this season, and what he hopefully will do in future seasons, along with what he could possibly pass on to other players who would then improve the club and then hopefully replace him, it could be invaluable, really, considering we got him for nothing.
Well, definitely, I think what the important thing to take away from it is that Ancelotti's signings have improved the team.
Mm-hmm.
He's only made like 5. If he's made 4 signings, 5 if you'd include the effectively loan for Josh King, that it's pretty much going to be. Yeah, I think King aside, which I'm not really counting that much, to be honest, the 4 signings he's brought in, Godfrey, Doucouré, James and Alan, have all improved the squad. So I'm confident that he can continue to bring in the right players to continue to improve us. And that's going to be how we have to do it. I think every signing, like I say before, every signing we bring in is going to have to be one that improves the first 11. And if that means, your players like your Richarlisons, or even the signings he brought in, your Allans, or, Michael Keanes or whatever, if they have to drop to the bench, then need be. We do that because it improves the squad as a whole, and it gets the better players in this squad, like your Richarlisons or your Michael Keanes, have got to fight hard to get back in the team then.
And as well, when you buy better players, as the squad gets better and a higher quality, you attract a higher quality of players because they'll see what's being built.
They'll see more potential in the squad.
Exactly, and they'll be more attracted to us. The likes of James just being around will make people think, oh, I might go there if he's there, because he's a global superstar. So it builds up, and then it gets easier to attract the likes of players who could replace James eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And with that in mind, someone Aaron says, caught on Sigurdsson this season. I think Sigurdsson's been all right this year, not amazing, but made a decent enough contribution. Wormy Spoons has nailed it here, I think. Sigurdsson's okay, squad player on half the wages. Obviously, his contract's coming up. And on Sigurdsson, that's exactly what I do with Sigurdsson. I would offer him a new contract on lower terms, with a reduced role, except that he's predominantly a substitute, like I say, a player who will be pushed down the pecking order by better players who come in. And if he's okay with that, he signs the contract. If he doesn't want that and he's not committed enough to that, then he can go. I think that's the best way of working it. I'd like to see him stick around in a reduced role, but if he's not content with that and wants to be on higher wages and that's what is motivating him, which I hope it isn't, but if that is what motivates him, then he'll have to leave.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him around anyway if that was his main focus.
Exactly. But it's a big question mark on Sigurdsson as what is his motivation at times. Sometimes he can be brilliant, sometimes he can be absolutely terrible.
Yeah, well, we know the quality, don't we? We've seen it since he come in, flashes, some seasons more than others. So, and he's another one that his game doesn't exactly rely on pace. So as he gets older, you like to think that he'd still have some kind of effect when he comes.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So I agree that I think he's definitely good enough to be a squad player for us. And this season, he's
give him a pay cut, because
yeah,
he's a player who I think is good enough to offer something, but he's not good enough to command the massive salary he's on.
No, nowhere near.
And that's an indignation of Steve Walsh again.
There's better out there for the wages that we would have to pay. We could get some brilliant player on the wages that he's currently on, or if we were to split his wages in half, get 2 squad players who do just the same job that he would.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he's committed to the Everton cause, then he'll sign a contract on smaller wages and a reduced role. If he's not, then that'll show if he rejects the contract.
Yeah, well, if they're not committed to Everton as a club, then I don't really want them around anyway.
But I think he should be understanding that his role will be reduced in the years to come. If he wants to stick around, he'll have to accept lower wages. And if he's not prepared to accept that, I mean, personally, he hasn't done enough to merit a very high wage. So he should be looking ahead to a pay cut. If he's not willing to accept that, then we part ways.
I think he has been. Obviously, when we first brought him in, he was kind of our main source of goals for a little while. And
yeah.
And I think a lot of the fans grew a bit sour. I was one of them towards him. And this season, I think he's won a few fans back with his performances. And he's proved that he is good enough to be around the squad.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. He is a good squad player, but that's where it needs to end, really. I don't think we can be relying on him for a whole season. I'd like to see. He's one of these players, I'm saying, who's probably in and around the starting 11 a lot now, but we need to be bringing in these players with hunger, with high status players who we can bring in as starters to maybe push the likes of him, the likes of other players, maybe like a Michael Keane or even a Richarlison, see them drop to the bench and have to fight their way back in. And if those players have got the hunger, then they will be able to succeed in that throughout the season.
Yeah, he definitely isn't good enough to start, but definitely he's good enough to be around and push us with what he offers off the bench.
That's the thing. The best teams have squad depth and competition for places, and I think I'd like to see a few of our starters this season be considered substitutes next season, and that's a sign of progress.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I think we can really go and kick on if we do that, but getting the right signs in. Some might argue that might hinge on Europe as well.
Yeah.
Which makes winning this game a lot more, crucial. We've got to win this game, in my opinion, if we want to be Arsenal went above us last night, which is they've had a disastrous season. If they finish above us, then that's an embarrassment on the club.
I could see that. It made me cringe thinking how poor I think they've been this season, and obviously we do have the 2 games in hand, but we can't let them finish above us. I think, and I agree with what you say that if we win this game, it puts us in a great position because we've got Sheffield United next, who are awful, and then Wolves, who haven't been the greatest this season. Both are at home, which worries me a little bit.
But Wolves are a good side.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a bit more confident. I'm actually more confident for the Wolves game because of the fans being back in the stadium.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But Sheffield United, I'm not saying nothing about that because
banana skin.
That's a major banana skin waiting to happen there. We need to win this game and we need to win that game as well. I think we need to. I'd like to see us win all the game. I mean, the Man City game, you never know what might happen. They might pick the kids and we might have a fighting chance, but if they don't, we've got no chance. So, I'd like it. For me, every game is a must-win between now and the end of the season if we want Europe. But yeah, if we finish below Arsenal, for instance, and end up 9th or something, that's a very poor season, I think, even though it is progress on the previous year, but not enough, I don't think.
No, it's so easy in these final few games to turn the season into a brilliant season or, like you said, a really poor season. And it all rests on, I'd say, the next 3 games because, like you said, the City game is almost always a write-off, depending on...
It's like a free hit. You'd like to think anything we get out of that will be a bonus.
Yeah, well, I hope that whatever we are going to get this season is wrapped up before that game. I don't want to go
That's precisely what I'm fearful of. I don't want to go into that game knowing we could be leapfrogged on the final day if we don't get a result at City.
Yeah, I know. I think going to a place like City, needing the result, it's never good because barely anyone gets a result there. So, especially us, we never seem to do that well against City.
say that, but we never did at Anfield, we never did at Spurs, we never did at Arsenal. You know, we might have a. No, our record's been better this season, so there might be hope, but I don't want to be relying on hope and trying to win at City to get what we need. We need to win this game. Certainly, we need to win the other 2 games as well. I'd like to. I mean, we could do it, but I'm not the most confident. I mean, there's still a lot to play for, and you've just got to hope that we can do it. Really, I'm not the most confident, but
I think I'm more confident about us winning tonight than I am about the other 2 games, purely because we're away from home.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I'd like to think we can get a decent result, but you just don't know what Everton's going to turn up, and that is where the problem is. We could come out the blocks and be really good, or we could come out and be wretched and make an absolute mockery of ourselves, and that's the way it's been for large periods, particularly in the last couple of months of the season. And, you know, like you say, it's depending on how these games go, this could end up being a very good season or it could be a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to these players. And I might say this before every game and start to sound like a broken record, to be honest, Callum, but every game is a question of how much do you guys want to have a decent season? How much do you want to be in Europe next season?
Yeah.
How much do you want it, basically? And if they want it enough, they can do it.
Yeah, because
it's over to them.
It's not like these games as well are like really difficult games. They are definitely there to be won.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's one of those. It's been such a mad season. I think any game's winnable if you go into it right.
Yeah.
But too often we haven't. And that fear always lingers in my mind going into games, especially now. Safe to say we're very much at the business end of the season and every result matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got to get it right. And if we do it, like I say, it'll be a good season. If not, it won't be. But like I say, it's the onus is on the players now to show how much they want this.
I'd love us to get Europa League as well. I'd take the conference, but I think Europa League, team like Atlanta, they built off being in the Europa League, and now they're a pretty well established side.
Sevilla have made their entire history off Europa League. Like the entire recent history has been winning the Europa League.
So, I think we would do well in there as well, especially with a manager like Ancelotti and a few added signings to boost the squad out.
Yeah, hopefully, but you know, gotta get there first. And
yeah,
as I keep harping on about, these players need to show they want it enough, and that will, you know, that shows in the performance. How much they leave on the pitch today. They need to go out there and give everything they've got.
Yeah, because it's their own careers as well that they're playing for. Like, do they actually want to progress as players and play in the best competitions that they can, or are they happy to just sit, take the paycheck, and fester in mid-table?
Well, that's exactly it, mate. It's like it tells you what you need to know about the players. If these players have won it enough, you can go out there and get it. If they don't, then it shows that they're wasters.
Mm-hmm. We need a big squad overhaul.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, if these players want it enough, go out there today and go and get it.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say. I'll leave it at that. We'll get a few predictions in just before we finish up. Philip Mason, 2-1 Everton win. Wormy Spoon, screw it, 4-0 to us. I'll have whatever he's having. Wormy Spoon's 2 goals for us, ambitious. 2-1 Richarlison scoring first. I hope Richarlison gets a goal. I mean, it might help him a lot. But we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be an interesting one. But as I've said all the way through this, it's all the onus is on the players. So go out there and give everything you've got, and hopefully we can get the results. That's literally it. It's over to the players now, and fingers crossed. Before we finish up, prediction from yourself, Callum.
I don't think it'll be high scoring or a good game. I'd say 1-0 to us. 2-1 maybe a push, but like I think it was Wormy Spoon said, 2 goals is a little bit ambitious.
It's so ambitious. I'm gonna go with. I'm not. Like I say, I'm not the most optimistic at the moment. And considering these guys done us about a week ago, so I'm gonna go with a draw. I'm gonna say 1-1. I mean, it's not the result I want us to get, but it's the result I think we'll get.
That's fair enough.
But I'd love to be proven wrong. So it's over to the players. Fingers crossed. Just go out there, lads, and give it everything you've got for the cause. That's all we can ask for.
Yeah.
Just come off the pitch, haven't left everything out there. That's all we can say. And come on, you Blues. So we'll bring the pre-match show to an end. Kickoff's coming up in about 7 minutes or so. If you've tuned in, thanks for coming on, getting involved in the comments. I will be on the post-match show as well with Paul McAllister after the final whistle blows. So, here's to hoping that's a nice, positive show rather than a rant. We'll just see what happens, but definitely tune in for that, guys, whatever happens. Come on, you Blues, let's get this result. Let's get a win, fingers crossed. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues, and see you soon.